Hey everyone, Darren here from the Music Vault. Just coming at you on my day off. So there's this thread going around. We'll get right into it. So 1, 2, 3 thread. I thought it was pretty cool. I saw two videos. I've only seen. I think there's only two that I know of, and that's Metal Mickey who thought of this whole thing, and Darcy from Planet Six Strings. So I figured, what the heck, I'm gonna do it. And believe me, it is work. Some of them fell right into place. Like I have, say, like a top five albums that I love that are like desert island albums. So I just kind of drop them on the paper right here in my little book, and then after I got them all, then I scoured my collection. Now, just so you know, I'm gonna put this out there. These aren't my favorite bands per se. These are bands I love, um, but the albums are my favorite albums from this band. These bands, and these are my always my go to albums. Some are on my top five on these albums. They're Desert Island albums. So, like I said, and they happen to just fall into place, like in terms of um, where they are on the list. Now, there was some albums, like there's a lot of debut albums that are awesome and that are probably my favorite in their catalog, like Skid Row, their first album, but I can only have one, right? The very first Wasp album, bar none, hands down the best Wasp album ever out. Um, like, I mean, there's so many bands. Anyways, so I went with, you know, my whatever. I got 11. I hit a snag at 7. Like I hit a big snag because I thought I had number 7. And then I went back just to make sure that they were, you know, those albums that are my favorite are that number. And the one I hit was ACDC Back in Black, and it's their eighth album, and I already have an eighth album, and I'm like, oh man. So I had to scour my collection. I mean, the good thing is like I have a lot of CDs and vinyl and a lot of bands and a lot of discographies. Some a lot of like I think I have full discographies of a lot of bands. Um so this all fell into place except like I said number 7. Some of them are tricky because you go through them. Like I'll tell you, like this first one, the first one, like it's depending on my mood, but the first one is Iron Maiden's debut. Now, to me, Iron Maiden, and Iron Maiden Killers are bar none the best Iron Maiden albums out there. They're my favorite Iron Maiden album, and depending on the day, Killers could be my favorite, and then Iron Maiden, or so either way. So I went with Iron Maiden, because the first two Iron Maiden albums are my favorite. Everything else is good, and then it kind of peters off, and some of their newer stuff isn't as good as the earlier stuff. And like I said, bar none, Iron Maiden, and Iron Maiden Killers, two of my favorite. Those are my favorite Iron Maiden albums. So I just went with Iron Maiden, because Metallica Ride the Lightning, their second album, which came out in '84. The Iron Maiden came out in 1980. This one is '84. This is the album that got me into Metallica. Um, and I find the album that gets me into the band, I've heard so many times, and it just becomes my favorite of that band. I have a couple in here, but this is Metallica's second album, and yeah, it's my favorite Metallica album. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this band. I like this band. They have like their lyrics are questionable at best, but Slayer's Rain and Blood, hands down, this is what Slayer at its finest. Everything else after just became a parody of this, as far as I'm concerned. Um, like South of Heaven was a good album. What was the other one? Um, what was their fourth album? South of Heaven, and I can't remember it. It's brain fart. Those albums were good. Christ Illusion was stupid, and even their album covers were always dumb. They reminded me of Cannibal Corpse. Their album covers are stupid too. But the music on them, yeah. Um, but the Christ Illusion was like ridiculous. Repent, like they're, yeah. This is the epitome of Slayer as far as I'm concerned. Rain and Blood. So that's their third album, and yeah. So fourth, this one was kind of easy. Again, this album got me into this band as well. I remember being at high school or public school, grade 8 dances and that grade 7 dances, and dancing to Stairway to Heaven. And that was the big finale of the night, and that song got me into this band, which pointed me to this album. Which, I mean, this is bar none my favorite. Black Dog, Misty Mountain Hop, like just yeah. This album is bar none, and I've heard it said from a couple of guys that this is their favorite one too. Razor. This is number 5, and this is their 5th album, Violent Restitution. I managed to snag a first press on Fringe Records. I have this on cassette and I have it on CD. I just never had it on vinyl. And then a couple of years ago, I managed to snag a sealed first press on Fringe. And I think I paid like $70 for it. But to me, it's well worth it because this is my favorite Razor album. I love this album. Everything about it. I think this is when Rob Mills came in. This was his first album. And this is when the drumming got even better. The first 4, Embro was on it, Mike Embro. And he reminds me of Chris Hyde from Deliverance. He wasn't a technically smooth drummer, but he made those beats sound so that Razor would have a distinct sound. This kind of cleaned it up a little bit, still have a distinct Razor sound, like you can't beat it. It's figured out it's the guitar work. But the drumming on the first 4 put Razor, to me, a standalone speed metal band. So that's number 5. Number 6, and I didn't even know this album was out. This happened to be the newest of this band, and it happened to be their 6th album, and it just happens that it's my favorite. I have listened to this over and over again, and that's The Children of the Great Extinction by Becoming the Archetype. I think actually this is the only Christian band I have on here. Some of the stuff like Striper, Soldier Under Command, they're my favorite album from them is a number 2. Like there was just so many in the first couple of years or first couple of records that came out that this just happens to be my favorite. I spun this the most. Couldn't get it out of my car for the longest time. And just a great CD. I thought it was like I said, it's my favorite from that band. And that's number 6. This is where I hit a speed bump. Actually, I shouldn't say I hit a speed. I had a brick wall. Like I nailed a brick wall with this one because of AC/DC. I thought was Back in Black was number 7. Turned out to be their 8th one. The next album is I cowered and scoured and combed my CD collection, and I came up with Bloodthirsty from Cannibal Corpse. Now, Cannibal Corpse is one of these bands that they have 2 eras. They have the Chris Barnes era, then they have the George Fisher era. I find that the George Fisher era is far more superior than and it's probably because I don't like Chris Barnes' vocals as much. He's too barky, and George is very, death metal, like a crisp, I guess bark, grunt, whatever the heck you want to call him. But I got into Cannibal Corpse at the Vile album, which is the album before this. But this one stands out because it's got Dead Human Collection and Pounded into Dust. Pounded into Dust just kicks this album off like 300 miles an hour, just like a pummel to the face. Hence hitting the brick wall and smashing through it with this friggin' thing, because this is I think the second album with Pat O'Brien, and Pat O'Brien is he's just amazing on the guitar. So so that's 7 on 7. My 7th favorite, Cannibal Corpse. My ultimate favorite album. Pretty sure you guys are gonna know where I'm going with this one. Ultimate favorite album ever happens to be the 8th studio album from the greatest band in the world. Rush. I have about 7 or 8 copies of this. Actually, I just got the cassette in the mail yesterday. I'm sitting upstairs. I didn't even open it. I just got the cassette in the mail yesterday to go with, like, I'm starting to fill in the blanks with my cassettes of the Rush stuff that I don't have. I just got this one in the mail, and I've got Archives. I had the cassette cover. It was given to me in a collection, but the cassette wasn't in it. I found just the cassette on eBay, and I got that coming. So that completes everything. And I just got a couple other cassettes that I have to pick up from Rush. But then I'll have everything on cassette, CD, and vinyl. And so this is 8. My favorite album from Rush happens to be their 8th studio album, Moving Pictures. And talking about that, moving right along, is the 9th studio album, and this is the album that actually got me into this band. Again, another one. And people are going to go, really? They have so much better. I don't think so. I heard the song Rock You Like a Hurricane. I think my mom and dad bought me this album for Christmas one year. This is an original pressing, still in amazing shape. But this album, Love at First Sting, is the 8th studio album, or the 9th studio album from Scorpions, and it's my favorite. Bad Boys Running Wild, Rock You Like a Hurricane, I'm Leaving You, Coming Home, The Same Thrill, Big City Nights, As Soon as the Good Times Roll, Crossfire, Still Loving You. How can you not like this album? This album is absolutely a masterpiece. It is, every song is a rocker. There's no dud on this album. It's like the Moving Pictures. I think, having said all this, I think I would move this into my top 5 albums, the Desert albums. Metallica, Rush, The Razor, this. And I would have to say probably Iron Maiden. Maybe. Those 5 albums. I don't know. Anyways, so that's number 9 of this list, and which is the Scorpions. Number 10, I wanted to include this band, but I'm like, the Dio era of this band is my favorite. And it just so happens every banger on this album is a gem. You got Turn Up the Night, Voodoo, Sign of the Southern Cross, Falling Off the Edge of the World is my favorite Black Sabbath song. Um, Era Dio. Like, you've got stuff from Ozzy. You got After Forever is probably one of my favorite. Changes is a great song that Ozzy did. But Black Sabbath Mob Rules, the 10th studio album, and this happens to be this is the reissue, the new, I think it's the 40th anniversary issue, or the whatever 30th anniversary, I can't remember. It just says Mob Rules, doesn't say anything else. Everything about this album is great, and the funny thing is, the guy that did the cover, Greg Hildebrandt, is my brother. He's not my brother, but that's my brother's name, Greg Hildebrandt, which is, we always got a kick out of that. But yeah, this has the Mob Rules, Slipping Away, Country Girl. It's just over and over. There's not a bad song on this record either. And it's funny because it happened to just fall into place of being the 10th studio album from Black Sabbath. Crazy. Just crazy. Now, I had to include this one because this is another one that's why I went with the Iron Maiden, because this album has been in my top 5 forever and a day. So sometimes you have to go look with a tie. Your top 5 albums could be Iron Maiden slash the 11th studio album from Fleetwood Mac. I remember my aunt, this is the album that got me into this band. My aunt, had this album, and I ended up either buying it or she gave it to me. I can't remember this, and I don't know what the heck happened to my original copy. This is a new copy. This is I think an original as well, but it's not my original. I think honestly, I think that when I moved from the apartment to my first house, I think I left albums behind somehow, or somehow I because I'm missing, like, I know I had Testament live at the Dynamo, and I had like a bunch of other stuff. I'm like, I just don't know what the heck happened to them. I know what happened to my first pressing of Metallica, the Bonsai release of Kill 'Em All. The guy stole it, so I'm not gonna go there because I might get bleeped from YouTube. But yeah, the 11th studio album from Fleetwood Mac, and this is probably bar none. Secondhand News, Dreams, Never Going Back, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way is probably the best song on here. The Chain. I don't know what, I don't want to know. Oh Daddy, Goldust Woman. Like, this is just it's a stellar of a record. Every song on here is amazing. So that was number 11, and that's where I stopped. I have Genesis collection. I have the first 11 albums from Genesis, but Genesis is one of those things that I got into later in life, and I don't have a best album from Genesis, although Trick of the Tail is pretty much up there, because for some reason I go to that when I put an album on, I go to that one. So, and then there were three. That's the album that really kind of got me back into Genesis to really kind of pursue, you know, Genesis on more whatever. Journey, they they're 11. I don't even know how many studio albums they have, but I know that the 12th album from Journey is not my favorite. And then the Headstones, I don't even think they have 12 albums out. Judas Priest was another one. Screaming for Vengeance is my favorite. Screaming for Judas Priest, but that was like I think that's their seventh studio album, or no, it's their eighth. It came out same as the Rush, I think. The Exploited, Let's Start a War was their number. That was their third album. So there was a lot of albums and a lot of bands. The Eagles, I love the Eagles, but I don't have a favorite album from them because probably if I had to, it would be a greatest hits package. Like I have the best of the Eagles. I have the greatest hits package volumes 1 and 2. They have all the best songs on there, and then there are some on the albums that are just as good. Deliverance, same thing with Deliverance. I don't think they have 12 albums out. Deceased, like all these bands that, some of their albums, some of the catalogs I haven't sat with long enough. Um, like growing up, Judas Priest was a staple. I got into Judas Priest, like I think it was 12 years old or something like that. Iron Maiden around the same time, Kiss. So a lot of the earlier stuff is the stuff that I really remember and I really gravitate toward. The newer stuff. I know Kiss has more than 12 albums out. Same with Priest and Maiden. Scorpions, like all those bands. Def Leppard, I would imagine, has at least 12 albums, but barn the first four albums from Def Leppard are amazing. Everything after that, I I think I own a couple. I think I own Hysteria. Actually, Hysteria's not a bad album, but yeah, Rush. Every album really. But Moving Pictures. Their early stuff is probably the best up into Signals. So their first 9 albums are amazing, and then after that, it's like the catalog is good, but it's not the first 8 albums good. Anyways, so yeah, so that's my take. I got up to number 11. I'd like to see somebody hit 12, 13, 14, 15. I don't think you can. I don't think that I think you get probably to 12 if you're honest. And like for this, I really had to comb the album and go, okay, like what songs, what um like everything about it, is it my favorite? And then you have to sit back and go, yeah, this is my favorite album because it's got all of these elements that I love, like got me into it, or it's my first album from that band, or the song that got me into that album, which brought like the Led Zeppelin, like just brought the rest of the album with it. So yeah. Anyways, I rambled on long enough. I'll you guys have a great day, and let's see your lists. Cheers, guys.